Telemarketing fraud is a crime that affects millions of Americans every year. It usually starts with a phone call.
Hello?
Good evening, Mr. Jones. We wanted to call today to thank you for being such a good customer. And to reward you for your loyalty, we'd like to send you several valuable free gifts.
Well, that sounds good.
Now, in order to do this, we just want to verify some of the information.
They were just so friendly. I didn't know they were trying to rip me off. Then I got my credit card statement. Those free gifts, they weren't free at all. Now I know better.
Sir, all you have to do is confirm the first few numbers on your bank account. It ends in 1234.
I don't think so. My bank account number's my business, not yours.
Telemarketing scammers are good at what they do. They'll say anything and target anyone to commit fraud.
Hello?
Congratulations, Miss Smith. Your name was recently drawn as a winner in the Pan Pacific Lottery. You could collect $2 million.
I didn't think that I had entered the lottery. I filled out a couple of forms at the mall, but I didn't realize that the calls that I've been getting were connected to those forms. I'm not going to fall for that twice.
Mrs. Smith, because this is a foreign lottery, there are a few processing fees that need to be taken care of. If you send me $3,000, you can collect your winnings.
Oh, I don't think so. Goodbye.
The Federal Trade Commission and your state attorney general are working hard to stop telemarketing fraud. You can help. Recognize, report, register. First, learn to recognize the signs of telemarketing fraud, like callers who ask for money first, or who want to know your bank account, credit card, or social security number. Scammers may even have your billing information before they call you. Often, they're trying to get you to say okay so they can claim you approved a charge. Second, if you have been scammed, or you think someone is trying to scam you, report it to the Federal Trade Commission. It's as easy as going to ftc.gov and clicking on the link on the right. It's more helpful to the FTC if you can give the name or phone number of the company that called you and the date they called. Third, join the millions of Americans who have registered their phone numbers on the National Do Not Call Registry. It's easy. You can register online at donotcall.gov. Be sure to complete the process by clicking the link in the confirmation email you receive. You can also call toll-free 1-888-382-1222 from the number you wish to register. And remember, although telemarketing scammers may seem friendly, they're anything but. They're trying to worm their way into your wallet. You can stop them by keeping your information to yourself, no matter how tempting the offer. Let's say goodbye to fraudulent telemarketers. Visit ftc.gov/phone fraud to learn more about how to recognize and report telemarketing fraud.
I'd like to call this meeting to order. Will everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Will the clerk please call the roll?
President Hartstein?
Here.
Trustee Brayman?
Here.
Trustee Glover?
Here.
Trustee Berman?
Here.
Trustee Trilling?
Thrilling?
Thrilling, trilling.
Here.
Stone?
Here.
Sussman? Here. Quorum established.
Thank you. This time I'd entertain a motion to approve our minutes of March 22nd.
So made.
Second.
Are there any additions or corrections to the minutes? Seeing none, will the clerk call the roll, please?
Brayman?
Aye.
Glover? Aye. Berman?
Aye.
Trilling?
Aye.
Stone?
No.
Sussman? Aye. Motion carried.
Thank you. I'd like to move on to our warrant, and I'd like to call our village treasurer, Mr. Tenorelli, relating to warrant 1142.
Corporate fund, $278,343.58. Parking lot fund, $4,044.83. Motor fuel tax fund, $5,847. Health insurance expense, $61,593.09. Fire pension fund, $175. Water fund, $7,489.83. Buffalo Grove Golf Fund, $17,854.07. Arboretum Golf Fund, $20,958.56. Payroll period ending 3/30/10. I'm 3/30/10, right? $866,703.69. Total warrant number 1142, $1,263,009.65.
Thank you. Are there any questions relating to the warrant? If none, I will entertain a motion to approve warrant 1142.
Second.
Will the clerk please call the roll?
Brayman?
Aye.
Glover? Aye. Berman?
Aye.
Trilling?
Aye.
Stone?
Aye.
Sussman? Aye. Motion carried.
Thank you. Under Village President's Report, I just have a few items this evening. First of all, I have a proclamation relating to Arbor Day. Whereas in 1872, J. Sterling Morton proposed to the Nebraska Board of Agriculture that a special day be set aside for the planting of trees. And whereas this day, called Arbor Day, was first observed with the planting of more than 1 million trees in Nebraska, and Arbor Day is now observed throughout the nation and the world. And whereas the village of Buffalo Grove has been recognized as a Tree City USA by the National Arbor Day Foundation and desires to continue the maintenance of our village urban forest, now, therefore, be it known that I, Elliot Hartstein, President of the Village of Buffalo Grove, along with the Board of Trustees, do hereby proclaim April 30th Arbor Day in the Village of Buffalo Grove and call upon all of our citizens and civic organizations to support efforts to protect our trees and woodlands and support our village urban forestry program, dated the 5th day of April 2010. I also like to introduce a proclamation relating to Public Works Week.
President, I believe Mr. Cool also has a presentation related to the arbor.
Okay, yes. Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Mr. President. On Wednesday, March 24, 2010, the Village of Buffalo Grove was awarded the National Arbor Day Foundation's 2009 Tree City USA Award. To receive this award, the forestry program must meet 4 standards. Standard 1, the village must have a tree board or a forestry section. Standard 2, the village must have a tree ordinance. Standard 3, the village must have a community forestry program with an annual budget of at least $2 per capita. Standard 4, the village must participate in an Arbor Day activity and have a proclamation designating Arbor Day in Buffalo Grove. It is with great pride that the forestry section presents the 2009 Tree City USA 22-year award. I would like to thank the village president, the board of trustees, and village residents for the continued support of the forestry program.
Thank you very much, and I think it's just something we can be proud of. I know that as people drive through our community, I tell you quite often, I hear, thank you so much. I hear constant compliments from people about it's something that's unique to our community, and something we can be proud of in terms of our parkways and what we've been able to do in terms of promoting forestry in our village and the planting of trees throughout the community. And I know it's something we take with pride and something that adds greatly to our community. I know one of our neighboring communities was speaking to a former village president in the village of Lincolnshire who resisted doing what we did on the extension of Route 22, and she was telling me, well, you know, I wish we would have listened, because we get all of these complaints about how come our stretch doesn't look like as well as it looks in Buffalo Grove, and she was sharing that with me a month or so ago. So I think it's something we can be very, very proud of, and something that we can be very, very pleased with, and thank you for all your efforts in that regard.
Thank you.
The other proclamation which I was going to read this evening relates to our Public Works Week, and recognizing Public Works. We're very, very fortunate, likewise, in our community to have a Public Works Department that makes sure that our streets and all of our public works are maintained in a good and proper manner throughout the community, and that our snow is shoveled in an efficient manner that would, once again, something we can take pride with, that makes us second to none to many of our neighboring communities when it comes to the type of services we have. And with that in mind, I'd like to read this proclamation. Whereas public works services provided in our community are an integral part of our residents' everyday life, and whereas the support of an informed and understanding citizenry is vital to the efficient operation of public works systems and programs such as water, sewers, streets, public buildings, and snow removal, and whereas the health, safety, and comfort of this community greatly depends on these facilities and services, whereas the quality and effectiveness of these facilities, as well as their planning, design, and construction, are vitally dependent upon the efforts and skills of public works personnel, and whereas the efficiency of the qualified, dedicated personnel who staff public works departments is materially influenced by the people's attitude and understanding of the importance of the work they perform. Now, therefore, be it known that I, Elliot Hartstein, President of the Village of Buffalo Grove, and the Board of Trustees, do hereby proclaim May 16th through 22nd, 2010 as National Public Works Week in the Village of Buffalo Grove, and call upon all residents and civic organizations to acquaint themselves with issues involving providing our public works services and recognize the contributions which public works personnel make every day to ensure the health, safety, and comfort and quality of life. Dated this 5th day of April 2010. And I'd like to just take this opportunity to expend special thanks for the day in, day out dedication and works of our Public Works Department. Lastly, in terms of official business under the President's report, I would ask the Board concur with the recommendation that Erwin Borowski be appointed to the Buffalo Grove Days Committee in accordance with the recommendations of the committee.
Made. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Congratulations, and we thank Mr. Borowski for his willingness to serve. Lastly, we've talked about this many times, but it's really, really important that we reemphasize it, and I encourage our citizenry to get behind us in this. And I'm talking about a couple issues, which a few of us are going to be in Springfield next week for the Illinois Municipal League Northwest Municipal Conference Legislative Days. I believe Mr. Trustee Berman and Trustee Brayman may be coming, and anybody else is certainly welcome to come as well. We're going to be down there talking about concerns not only to our community, but concerns to communities throughout the state. First and foremost, our revenue stream. There's been a proposal that's been bandied about that would talk about reducing our distributive fund. One of the main sources of revenue for our community is our share of the state income tax, which under the distributive fund is 1/10. It's basically, and this is determined, that's the importance of the census forms, and this is a good time to remind you, any of you who have not completed your census forms, it takes just a few moments to complete those few questions, and it is critical that we get a good count, because having that good count determines the share of the revenue that we get, since it's determined on a per capita basis. So if you have not already done so, I urge you to take the few minutes it takes. For any of you who are fearful that you shouldn't be doing this, this is not a good thing to do. This is all private information. It's very easy to do, and I urge you to all do that. Along those lines of the distributive fund, I am hopeful that the state legislature will see fit not to tamper with that distributive fund and not to attempt to balance the state budget on the backs of municipalities. That's the reason I'll be there. That's the reason a couple of our other trustees will be there. That's the reason mayors and trustees from all over the state will be in Springfield next week to speak out loud and clearly this is not something that the state should be doing in terms of this budgetary process. The other issue, which we talk about time and again, are our pensions. In the infinite wisdom of the General Assembly, they saw fit to move forward with some pension reforms, and that's a good thing. That's a good thing that they're doing that. I think the way they did it raises some serious questions, coming up with it in the morning and passing it by the end of the day without any input and any opportunity to discuss some of the nuances and impact of some aspects of that particular bill that affects new employees, I think is questionable, but the concept of pension reform is a good thing. As you all know or have read about in our newsletter and at our village board meeting a month or so ago, we became part of the Pension Fairness Coalition, which is a coalition of communities and organizations throughout the state trying to work for pension reform. But one of the things in their infinite wisdom when they hurriedly passed this pension reform is they failed to include those pensions which are mandated, which are dictated, over which we have no control in the village of Buffalo Grove, relating to our public safety personnel. What those benefits are, how they're decided, and what's done is decided in Springfield. It's a portion of our budget which is over 30% of the real estate tax bill from the village of Buffalo Grove is over something we have no control. But somehow, some way, in their desire and to put something on the book so that they could say that they were creating reform, they failed to do anything whatsoever with regard to those public safety pensions. I am hopeful that next week, when they hear the reminder from municipalities and many, many other organizations around the state, that this is something that needs to be addressed also. This needs to be part of the mix, because once again, when the state is mandating and then they're not trying to give us any relief when they're trying to be able to do something meaningful and then pass it off as meaningful without addressing this aspect of it, it's simply wrong. It's simply a major misstep on the part of the state in not addressing this issue. So I'm hopeful that as residents, as people who are impacted by these pensions which were heaped upon us by Springfield and by the state distributive fund, that you will do your best to contact our governor, contact our state legislature, our legislators, our representatives, and our senators, and let them know that this is something that they should not be doing with regard to changing that distributive fund. And something that they should be doing is making sure that those public safety pensions are included as part of the mix in the reforms that they're talking about or beginning to take steps on in Springfield. At this time, I've asked if there are any further reports from trustees.
Me?
Cam.
Just another update and to add on to what President Hartstein said. If you have not sent in your census forms, please do so as soon as possible. As of last Tuesday, which was March 30th, 56% of our residents had returned the questionnaires. I am sure the number is much higher now. I know some people that waited until April 1st to send it in because the Census Bureau said that April 1st was Census Day. So I'm sure that we're in the 75 to 80% at least by now. Please send it in. The information cannot be shared with any other government agencies. It's 10 questions, takes 10 minutes, very simple, and it's to your benefit. It brings us money to bring services to you. For anybody that needs another form, Both the Indian Trails and the Vernon Township Libraries have them. So if you have any questions, please give us a call or check the Census Bureau website. But please take the 10 minutes to send that in. Thanks.
Thank you. No further reports from trustees? Seeing none, we'll move on to our village manager's report. Mr. Brim?
Just one report, and I'm asking Rob Giddens, while he's coming up to the podium, I asked him to speak on some issues with Comcast and Channel 6 over the last week. But just to remind the board and the public that the Finance Committee will be meeting next Monday evening at 6 o'clock down in the lower level conference room to discuss just a few matters related to the committee. And as I mentioned, I've asked Rob this morning to speak to the board and the community about some of the issues we experienced in the last week regarding Channel 6 and the outage that occurred really on the Comcast side of the system, I believe. And every indication continued to be noted that the Channel 6, the rebroadcast, was playing correctly through the AT&T UVerse system. There was some, we were brought to my attention this past Saturday that the system was still out. And Kate and I got on it right away, and I think the service has been restored. But I've asked Rob just to provide an overview on what we understood occurred with Comcast and their playback of our channel, our local government channel to the community.
Thank you. Just to get some historical perspective on this, since April 2008, there have been 18 government access channel issues. The problems have either been owned by AT&T, Comcast, or the village. These issues lasted anywhere between 15 minutes or over a week, as in the last week, to solve. The configuration of the system is such that we have one video server, and that feeds both AT&T and Comcast. Simultaneously, if the video server is down, then obviously both AT&T and Comcast will be affected. If there's a problem with the AT&T infrastructure, or if there's a problem with the Comcast infrastructure, it won't affect either one of those. If there's, of the 18 outages in the last 2 years, 9 of the outages were the responsibility of the village. These issues were usually represented by audio playing and the incorrect video, or no video playing, or the village board meetings cutting off prematurely. Some examples of this would have been the Microsoft hill playing in the background, and again, no audio, or audio playing and nothing moving, no information being displayed there. The resolve to this has historically been rebooting the video server or adjusting the playback window if a meeting ran into the next morning. The fix for these types of issues ran between 15 minutes and 4 hours to fix from the time that the issue was reported. One of the issues was responsibility of AT&T, where there was no audio on the station, and that took approximately 5 hours for AT&T to fix. 8 of the issues were the responsibility of Comcast. These are represented by static on the TV, no picture, or no video at all. These issues were generally resolved between 6 hours and 24 hours, with a few lasting multiple or a few days. All three groups obviously are working to reduce or minimize the types of problems that are going on. The village has purchased and configured a new replacement video server for our Channel 6, which will drastically reduce the type of errors that we've been experiencing on our system that we're responsible for. We're in the process of converting some content over to the new server, and that should be in place shortly. Last week, the problem was that it took over a week to solve a problem that was Comcast's issue. I've scheduled a meeting with Chris Nelson, our government relations representative, to figure out better ways of getting information from us to field representatives so that they could actually do the fix. Obviously, Comcast and village staff expects that these new protocols will shorten the windows it takes to get problems resolved. The short sheet on the problem from last week was that there was a amplifier and a line that was down off of Dundee Road, fairly close to Buffalo Grove High School. Comcast just wasn't able to find where the problem was or get it fixed. They did wind up resolving it Saturday evening, somewhere between 6 and 10 o'clock or so. They then contacted Kid Newkirk, contacted Bill to find out that the problem was resolved. After that, we found out there was a problem with the video server. A reboot of that then solved the problem, and everything was good. So again, there are problems. It's not a perfect system. We do not have a constant monitoring. We don't actively watch the system other than the police department front desk, who does that as obviously they're busy doing their primary function being police functions. And we encourage, if there's residents or trustees that see problems, if you please contact the police department front desk that's open 24 hours a day, they could then get the ball rolling to get the proper resolve to this. I'd like to open it up for any questions that I might be able to answer on this issue.
Just for everybody's information, when people do experience that, just because obviously there are times when I may not even, when someone's brought it to my attention where I've gotten an email and so forth, and I've immediately contacted the village manager's office or Mr. Giddens to address the issue. But sometimes, whether it be myself or members of the board may not be aware of this. So I do encourage anybody in the community who experiences an outage not to hesitate to make the call to the non-emergency number of the police department, and that number is
459-2560.
So if you call that non-emergency, all you have to do is let them know, and that they will make sure that steps are taken as quickly as possible. Some things we can, as Mr. Giddens pointed out, we can take care of. Other things are in the hands of whether it be Comcast or AT&T. Any questions for Mr. Giddens? Trustee Brightman.
Rob, did the police department notice it?
Did the police department, it was reported by the police department. The last problem has been playing out for
this last one, he said it was a week.
Right.
Did the police department notice it?
Yes.
Okay, when did they notice it? Early on, or?
I apologize. When it's brought to the police department's attention or brought to my attention, we log it as a record. I can provide that
Okay.
detail.
I just want to make sure that it's working. I mean, we have a fail-safe system where they're supposed to be monitoring. I want to make sure that they are monitoring it and it's working that way. That's all.
Yeah, the process does work.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Stone, did you have something?
Yeah. Is it possible that Comcast can take some responsibility in being, I mean, they're very on top of things technologically to manage so many stations and billing and this and that. Couldn't they be responsible for when a channel's not working, that somehow it triggers to them? I mean, I would think that in the high-tech world of what they do, that they would somehow know if a channel wasn't working, and then that way we wouldn't have to have our police worrying about it and things of that nature. Is that possible?
As I alluded to before, I've got a meeting set up with Chris Nelson. I'll absolutely bring that to his attention, asking him if there's a way that they could do that. I don't believe that they have that system set up where they've got live people watching, but I could absolutely request that of them to be able to monitor our stations also.
Yeah, I don't mean that they'd be watching. They've got so many hundreds of channels in different villages, but I mean that the computer somehow could give them some sort of alarm or notification when something's not working. Certainly, we know if we don't pay their bill, they contact us pretty quick. So I think that somehow they could have something programmed to let them know, especially when a government channel's not working. If it were HBO or Showtime, they'd probably be quicker to fix it, is my guess, because they make a lot of money. I think that they make a lot of money from our villages. We know over $10, $11 million a year, I think. So I think that would be a good idea.
Fair enough. I'll bring it to his attention.
Thank you.
That would conclude my report. Thank you.
Thank you very much. At this time, we will move on to questions from the audience on non-agenda items. I invite anyone to come forward at this time.
Good evening. My name is Barnett Fagel. I live at 224 Stanton Court West. I did, in fact, send an email to President Hartstein regarding the cable outage, and I have some other points to add to that you might find interesting. I, like a lot of neighbors of mine in Buffalo Grove, called Comcast and advised them of the situation. The first thing they wanted to do was send a technician out to the house. Well, I was in video and community antenna television systems 30 years ago, and I knew what the problem was. I said, don't send anybody to the house. It's at your head-end system. But they have to go through their postcards for their regular motif. I finally got a hold of a supervisor that conceded that it was a problem. And then the next day, I had some coffee with some friends of mine, and two of them mentioned that they had called Comcast, and they asked Comcast if anybody else had called. Comcast said, no, you're the first call. So Comcast has got more than just a technical problem, they've got a people problem. And to this end, it should be noted that having the police department monitor our channels seems like an awful waste of precious police department resources. They have better things to do. There used to be someone here at the village that if there was a problem, you could call them, specifically for the cable television. In fact, in 2006, I believe there's a committee of some sort for the municipal channel, and there's supposed to be 2 trustees on that committee. Are they here tonight, or? Are they assigned, or are they?
We have a cable committee, but that's not the function of the cable committee is to deal with programming and policy issues. Does not deal with technical day-to-day operations issues.
President Hartstein, I beg to differ. I read the contract, read the memo regarding that particular statement you're making, and it also has to do with quality of service. And not having any service is a detriment, is a problem with quality of service. So you don't mind if I correct you on that. The other item is that technically there are electronic means to monitor the station. Someone doesn't have to sit there and watch it. All I have to do is monitor the video level or monitor the action on the screen electronically. This was done many, many years ago. Comcast is well within their purview to do it. And the second subject I want to talk about is I understand from a newspaper article that there's going to be a meeting with the Land O'Lakes people, and since it concerns the public and since I live in an area adjacent to that precise parcel in question, and the fact that I have a respiratory condition, I would like to be present at that meeting as a concerned resident with health issues regarding the air we breathe.
I will discuss that with our village attorney. We have decided to have a meeting with council and representatives, and at this time there is no intention that be a public meeting at this particular time. I'll discuss that with council and with other parties, but it is not intended to be a public meeting.
Note my exception to that statement, the fact that it's public error. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any further questions from the audience? Seeing none, we'll move on to our consent agenda. The consent agenda is the portion of the meeting whereby one routine motion, certain items are adopted. Anyone on the board, anyone in the audience can request that an item be removed from the consent agenda. At this time, I'd like to call on our village clerk, Jan Sarabian, and summarize this evening's consent agenda.
Thank you. First item is Resolution 2010-14, a resolution that will serve as a surety bond when permits are requested by the Village of Buffalo Grove to do work in state right-of-way for the calendar years 2010 and 2011. The village is required to provide a surety bond to the state of Illinois, Illinois Department of Transportation, so as to permit municipal maintenance within the state right-of-way, highway right-of-way. Resolution 2010-15, authorizing the execution of a lease agreement for food service at the Buffalo Grove Commuter Rail Station. This resolution with exhibited lease is for the purpose of assigning the food beverage service at the village's Metro Station, Commerce Court, from John Sile, DBA Jake Enterprises, LLC, to Janet Verpale, Jake's Java Junction. Staff recommends approval of both items on the consent agenda.
Are there any requests that, pardon? Mr. Reisner?
A request to remove, Mr. President, just a correction of a misnomer that Jake's Java Junction is a license, not a lease. So I've directed staff to prepare correct the typo in there. That's all I had, Mr. President.
Thank you. Are there any requests that any items be removed from the consent agenda? Seeing none, will the clerk call the roll, please?
McRaven.
I'll move.
I'll second.
Oh, I'm sorry. We would, that's a good idea.
As amended. As amended.
As amended.
As amended. That's a good idea.
I'll also vote aye.
That's a good idea, too.
Aye. Over. Berman.
Aye.
Trilling.
Aye.
Stone. Sussman. Aye. Motion carried.
Thank you. We move now to ordinance and resolutions, which we have none. We move to old business and authorization to execute an agreement, energy purchase recommendation. Trustee Stone.
Can I defer to the manager?
Sure thing.
Yes, thank you. And just in terms of background, on February 22nd of this year, the village board authorized staff to follow a competitive review process, which included a waiver of bidding in order to select energy supply contracts for 6 of the village's major accounts from state-authorized market participants. Just for the record, the 6 major accounts, and again, this is required by state legislature and legislation, is that any accounts that have service greater than 100 kV is rated have to proceed into the competitive market for their electric needs. Service is still provided through the Commonwealth Edison network, but the 6 accounts we're talking about are the 2 golf courses and 4 water and sewer utility accounts. That service was bid, and bids were received from several firms, and those recommendations were brought back on March 8th. When the board reviewed the contract on that evening, it was determined that there was just some differences in language, and there was some discussion between the board and the village attorney regarding clarification of the service contract. And if I remember correctly, most specifically related to the concept that it was a 2-year agreement between the village and the utility, that being Mid-America Energy. But the agreement had a 30-day kickout, so in essence there was just a conflict between the representation and the agreement that in essence it was a 30-day agreement, and that was unacceptable to the village. The village attorney went back with Greg Boyson and our representatives from Energy Choices Incorporated, which helped us secure the bid and the pricing for a 2-year period. The contract has been addressed and is properly reflected of the terms and conditions as requested the village attorney. The copy was placed on the dais this evening, and the energy cost was repriced. And unfortunately, with the way the market has moved over the last 4 weeks, because again the initial recommendation was dated February 22nd, and with a proposed pricing of March 8th, and now we're to April 5th. The price has only gone up, I believe, 0.2 of a cent. I guess we're 4 or 5 places to the right of the decimal. So the savings that we've represented at $76,000 is still valid. The actual price per kilowatt hour, the blended rate is 0.438 cents. That compared to 0.436 approximately a month ago. So we're really right where we had hoped to be with the pricing, and we're not adversely affected as staff and council and our representatives from Mid-America Energy resolved all the issues with the contract. So the recommendation this evening would be to authorize the execution of the agreement with Mid-America Energy. They are located in Iowa, and they are licensed to market electricity in the state of Illinois for a 2-year period. Beginning actually most of 2011 and 2012. This contract would run concurrent when our current agreement with, I believe, Constellation New Energy expires later this summer into the early fall, per the contract terms noted, at a rate of 0.436 cents, I believe, per kilowatt hour. 3.8, yes.
Are there any questions by anyone relating to the provisions and clarifications? If not, entertain a motion to approve.
So made.
Second.
Any discussion on the motion? Not, will the clerk call the roll, please?
Raymond?
Aye.
Glover?
Aye.
Furman?
Aye.
Pilling?
Aye.
Stone?
Aye.
Truster? Aye. Motion carried.
Thank you.
Next, moving on to a item under new business, authorization to bid replacement of the rooftops at Buffalo Grove Police Headquarters. Mr. Brim?
Thank you. This is a request for authorization to bid the replacement HVAC units, rooftop units at the Buffalo Grove Police Headquarters. In October 2009, through Representative Kirk's office, the village was awarded a United States Department of Energy grant as part of their Energy Efficient and Conservation Block Grant Formula Program. In this case was to replace all the rooftop HVAC units on top of the police department, which are well past their effective service lives. The grant is awarded will cover 100% of the cost of the actual expenses for the hardware and the actual HVAC units, which includes engineering, design, and installation. This project would be put out to bid if the board so authorized this evening, and within the next 30 days, we would hopefully bring back a recommendation to the board and undertake this project this summer in order to have those units in place.
Thank you. Trustee Berman.
Bill, this is a capital project that you'd been proposing for some time now that we had deferred.
That's correct. Yes, we had this one and also for the golf course HVAC system.
Gotcha. And as it stands now with the grant that came through Congressman Kirk's office, it'll be 100% funded with grant funding?
Yes, that's absolutely correct.
There's no matching component?
No, 100% funding.
Wow, that's terrific. Congratulations to our staff for pursuing it, and thank you to Congressman Kirk for that.
At this time, I entertain a motion to approve.
So made.
Second.
Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, will the clerk call the roll?
Raymond.
Aye.
Weber. Aye. Berman.
Aye.
Trilling.
Aye.
Stone.
Aye.
Sussman. Aye. Motion carried.
Thank you.
Moving to item B, authorization to waive bids and to purchase a Mobilecom or replacement vehicle chassis and equipment vehicle build-out. Trustee Trolling.
For the purposes of discussion, I'd like to move authorization to waive bids and to purchase Mobilecom replacement vehicle chassis and equipment, a vehicle build-out as contained in our memo dated April 5th, 2010.
Second.
Thank you. This is actually an exciting project that staff has been working on with our volunteers with EMA and our public works staff through the garage to provide for a replacement of the village's mobile communications vehicle, that being Mobilecom. It's affectionately known as Mobilecom. The request would require a waiver of bidding by the village board. The request would be to purchase a chassis, a modular, a box unit that the communications facility and the equipment would be built onto, and also some additional costs for EMA equipment relocation, the transfer of the mast, and also an interior build-out. The project would be in an amount not to exceed $111,394. Within the reserve for capital replacement for this project is an amount equal to $135,912, so it is not a budget, does not have a budget impact. These amounts have been provided in prior years. The equipment that the new build-out would replace is a 1989 Ford E350 ambulance that came out of rotation from the fire service and was retrofitted generally by, on all volunteer efforts by the EMA staff back in 1989 to provide for Mobilecom and for its use as a communication vehicle. That vehicle is deployed on a regular basis. Generally, I think what the community has seen it as at Buffalo Grove Days, call out for special events and emergencies I believe by the Mobile Field Force. It provides a lot of support, not just in Buffalo Grove, but for police and fire outside, both outside and within the community. And it's a pretty well-used vehicle and by a very well-respected group that has run mobile communications for public safety and public works for quite a number of years. But the vehicle is dated. I've been knowledgeable of a lot of equipment breakdowns. Unfortunately, I think there's been a few situations where just by the age of the vehicle and the condition, it unfortunately had to be towed back to the village a few times, and it is ready for replacement as well beyond its useful and effective service life. This decision is very cost effective, and again, taking a new ambulance style chassis and a modular equipment box and building it from the ground up rather than taking an ambulance and retrofitting. And it compares quite well because when staff went out and looked at what Superintendent Whalen identified as turnkey custom units, they run anywhere from $300,000 to $500,000, depending on the size of the vehicle, to get a communications vehicle out and custom and built from the ground up. And again, we propose to do this again with staff and volunteer labor and knowledgeable volunteer labor with individuals that have been committed to EMA and Mobilecom and ESDA when it was ESDA for a number of years in an amount, again, not to exceed $111,394. So our recommendation, again, would be proceed as documented. The specifications are attached and, again, would come with a request for a waiver of bidding.
There's been a motion made and seconded on that?
Yes.
So made.
No, that one.
We've already.
Do it again.
Okay.
We've got two of them.
No, I'm happy with what I got.
Any discussion on the motion? Trustee Trolling.
Thank you, Mr. President. Bill, or Rick, or anyone else who cares to comment, the Ford chassis, as it's detailed, is $36,744, and then there's a rebate given by Ford. Is that a government rebate they were giving, or?
No, this is a rebate that was provided by Ford. My understanding from talking with Bob Whalen is that we're taking a chassis that's a model year old. The 2010 and 2011 chassis are ready to come out, and we're taking this from the vendor, and Ford is providing through the vendor a rebate for taking the chassis off the lot.
I see. And the special conversion, I assume that is really what Foster coach sales really does.
That's correct. That's the modular box, and put the box and get everything ready on top of the chassis. So when it is delivered, It's basically ready to go, subject to the retrofit, the equipment transfer to put the new mast on, and the detailing, if you will, of the interior and the exterior of the vehicle.
Okay. Are there other companies that do this type of work that we've investigated in any way as far as their ability to do this conversion?
Bob did a lot of work representing staff in the garage and in his role as superintendent in the garage function. And I know he spent a lot of time, and as we've noted, we've been working on this for almost a year and has put a lot of due diligence into this, so Bob can provide some insight on that.
I did a lot of investigation with companies that provide custom-built units, and you see a lot of them in other communities. Most of them are built on Class 8 mobile home chassis. They're very expensive, but I have investigated Bodyworks, which was recommended to me by the company that's building our new water van. And after speaking to them, that was also a concern that they would not work with an ambulance chassis, which we have a problem with parking. The ambulance chassis now fits in the current garage. They wanted to build it on a bigger frame. It would not fit in our garage.
Have our other ambulances, excuse me, has our other ambulances been constructed by Foster also?
Yes, that's correct. Foster Coach did have the Northwest Municipal contract. Their contract expired, but they're in the process of negotiating a contract for 2010-11.
I see.
I would believe, Bob, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think the last 4 or 5 ambulances that we've bought through rotation, I think, have come through Foster. Am I right? And the chief is nodding and said yes. Okay.
I believe the last 6.
6. Okay. So okay, I thought it was okay that far back. Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? Any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, we'll call roll, please.
Raymond.
Aye.
Glover. Aye. Berman.
Aye.
Trilling.
Aye.
Stone.
Aye.
Sussman. Aye. Motion carried.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda relates to the proposed rules for procedure. A couple meetings ago, I presented to the board some proposed rules in the hopes of creating, codifying some of the procedures that we use for operating our meetings and to try and enhance the efficiency and basically make sure everybody had a full understanding, public-wise and otherwise, of what those rules were, so everybody would have a full understanding of that. Those were distributed to the board, and then our village attorney had suggested that he, in fact, do further review because he felt there were some other codifications which were necessary. I had been hopeful that we would have those back before us this evening, but the village attorney felt he needed some more time to work on the inclusion of some further information and some further codification as part of that procedure. I would just ask if the village attorney could give us a brief update on status and in the hope that we can have this back on our agenda for our next meeting.
The bottom line answer is yes, they will be on the agenda for the next meeting. After the board directed me to put in ordinance format the suggested rules of procedure, that was done. That was done in ordinance form. I then took a look at those procedures and compared them to what we have in Chapter 2.02 of our municipal code. I found some inconsistencies between Chapter 2.02 and the suggested procedures, so I started to correct those, change those, if you will. Then it came to my mind that for several years now, I have suggested that the board put down in writing a comprehensive rules of procedure that we have followed for the last 15, 20 years that have never been written down, such as finance committees, such as directing procedures for the treasurer, such as rules of order. We've never had those in writing. Our consent agenda isn't in writing, isn't even in our code. So I took it on my own volition and started to broaden the scope of the rules of procedure, and that's the reason that they aren't before you tonight. And yes, they will be done. That first draft has been done. It's been given to the village manager. I've received his comments back. We still have to take a look at a couple things, as I remember it, Bill, such as the finance committee we've never addressed in our code. But yes, it will be done by the next meeting.
Thank you very much. At this time, seeing nothing further on the agenda, move on. I'd entertain a motion to approve going into executive session for the purpose of discussing collective bargaining pursuant to Section 2C2 of the Illinois Open Meetings Act and to approve closed minutes pursuant to Section 2C12 21 of the Illinois Open Meetings Act.
So made.
Second.
Will the clerk please call the roll?
Raymond.
Aye.
Glover.
Aye.
Herman. Aye. Trilling.
Aye.
Stone.
Aye.
Sussman. Aye. Motion carried.
Thank you. No further action.
In today's economy, I check my credit annually. You can do it too for free. Under the law, it's guaranteed. AnnualCreditReport.com, the one you can depend upon. Other sites may turn your head, they say they're free. Don't be misled. Once you're in their tangled web, they'll sell you something else instead. AnnualCreditReport.com, the one you can depend upon. All the others charge a fee. Read the fine print and you'll see that's the harsh reality. I should know cause it happened to me. For truly free credit reports, there's only one authorized source. AnnualCreditReport.com, the one you can depend upon.
AnnualCreditReport.com. No hidden fees, absolutely free.